All right. We are here.
We're back.
We're back. What are we doing tonight?
We're going to be talking about dragon scales tonight.
Sweet.
Yeah. As it pertains to rod building, of course.
Right, absolutely. Now, did you have a good weekend?
I did.
Yeah?
Nice holiday weekend.
Excellent. Good long weekend?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Got some sun and all that good stuff. And yeah, how about yourself?
It was good.
Good.
Fished a little bit, got on the boat. Just did some rod building stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
We got a trip coming up.
I've heard.
We are going striper fishing in the Boston Harbor.
Should be a good time.
It should be fantastic. So we built a couple of the saltwater blanks out of the Nearshore series, you know, the SW80s, things like that.
Yeah.
So had to put some finishing touches on that. You know, the guys kind of helped put some design together, and then I knocked them out, and Jay and Phil, they did some photo and video stuff for them. So kind of putting something together for y'all. Hopefully it's going to be fun. We're going June 7th.
Good.
They say it's supposed to be hot.
Yeah.
Then. Not weather, but fishing.
Good.
Maybe weather too. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Certainly not hotter than here.
I was going to say, it's got to be a little cooler up in Boston than Florida for sure.
I hope it's not going to hit us with like a cold front or something.
Yeah.
You know, a June cold front is not something that I would look forward to.
No,
But
definitely not.
maybe a little change of pace. You know, maybe get in the 50s or 60s. I don't know. We'll see.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So tonight,
Yep.
we're going to be discussing, as I said, dragon scale, which is a super easy, but kind of an effective decorative accent, I guess you could add to your custom rod.
Yeah.
Like I said, very few tools required to do this.
Yep.
But it can really make your custom rod pop a little bit.
For sure. Now, there's always a little bit out of the peanut gallery of doing dragon scale with mesh tape and doing dragon scale with thread, braided fishing line, or like monofilament fishing line.
Right.
So we are going to show everyone tonight how to lay it out and how to do it with mesh tape.
Okay.
Because it gets a really nice effect. It's something that's easy for everybody, honestly. But we are also going to discuss the advanced way to do it. And, you know, it's not necessarily the right or the wrong way, but we will talk about how to kind of lay it out. We're not going to do it on the show tonight. We will do it in a future show, but it's just, I wouldn't say that it's all that advanced, it's just time consuming.
Right.
So we're not going to do that tonight, but I will kind of walk you guys through it, take you over to the whiteboard as we do on some things, and we'll talk about it.
Yep.
So.
Of course, we have giveaways, as always.
Always.
We got our third, second, and first place. Looks like we got some thread assortment kits. Of course, we're going to be giving away some mesh tape as well.
Yeah.
And actually, that feeds into the second giveaway as well, which also has a handle kit.
Perfect.
And then the grand prize, we have a multi-option rod kit.
Love it.
With a thread kit and mesh tape.
Gotta have
we'll
it.
bring them all together there.
For sure. Cool. All right. So I think hopefully everybody's filtering in. Looks like Jay and Phil are ready to rock. Are you ready to go ahead and get this thing kicked? Let's go.
There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission.
All right. Episode 73 here in the penthouse from good old Mudhole Custom Tackle. Love it. All right. We need to talk about the photo contest first.
Yep.
Because that's coming to a close in a couple weeks. You know, you got a hashtag build to win. It's on Guide Wraps. It ends June 28th. Get those photos in. Put them in the Mudhole Live Rod Builders Workshop. I think we're 15,000 members plus. It's still growing. It's the biggest. It's the best. It's Mudhole Live's Rod Builders Workshop.
Yep. You can get all the details for the photo contest there. Like Chris said, it ends in June, end of June.
Yep.
So you got three three-ish more weeks to get those guide wrap pictures and photos submitted into the workshop group.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's plenty of submissions already in there.
Yeah.
So you can still get some ideas if you want to, and
win a little bit of free money.
Yeah, win some gift cards and with.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Now, for those, this is a good time of year to do this. So we're doing a surf rod building class, okay? July 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And I have thrown this blank that they're going to be using. It's the CRB 9-foot Gator Graphite surf rod.
Yep.
Now, this is going to come in a kit. So you can go over to mudhole.com/classes. That's going to give you dates for the DIY rod building classes and the in-person classes.
Correct. Which
so
this one is an in-person class.
Okay.
And speaking on the 9-foot blank, you actually get 3 options there.
Ooh.
So there's a 7-power, 8-power, and 9-power. I cannot quote the exact line ratings off the top of my head.
I think the one I used was like a 1 to 4, maybe. It was really nice. We actually used it in Stewart last year, kind of during the prototyping stages.
Gotcha.
And it was cool, you know, for those that like the 9-footer, like the one-piece. It's great.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yep. Awesome. So three different options for your 9-foot blank. And as we mentioned, this one is actually in person.
Cool.
One of the few that we'll have in person this year. We have a couple more later this year.
Yeah, because for those that don't know, we have a full education center here at Mudhole in Oviedo. I don't know how big the place is, the room is, but it's huge.
Yes.
It's fantastic. It's really, really just a great place to learn how to build rods. So.
Yep. And that's a 3-day class. Still plenty of spots available there.
Yeah.
You can get that at, check it out, mudhole.com/classes.
Perfect.
And as you mentioned, there's a ton of other classes there too. If you guys are interested in a virtual class, definitely check out that. Those have been very popular for us. And you know, you can do that at the comfort of your home. You don't have to travel or come to Orlando or anything like that. So also a cool feature.
If you want to come to Florida, come on.
Yeah.
We got it.
Good time of the year for it.
Yep. All right. So the demo tonight. Talked about it. We're doing dragon scale. Now, as previous, maybe the last 2 or 3 Mudhole Lives, we have on the website, mudhole.com/MHL, stands for Mudhole Live. We have an area there that will give you the tools and supplies that we are going to use on the show. So after the show's over, if you want to buy some of this stuff, you don't have to go hunting over the website. There's a lot of stuff there, and it is a great site. But if you want to do stuff that is pertaining directly to what we're doing tonight, that mudhole.com/MHL, and that's going to give you, you know, everything that we're going to use. So what are the steps that we're going to take?
Yeah, so this one is pretty easy for dragon scale. You mentioned, you know, before the intro, we're going to be using mesh tape tonight. So it's super easy. You know, this is just standard mesh tape. It's got built-in design already. That's why we use it. It's very easy to use. And you can also, you know, we'll show later how to cut this material to kind of tweak the design a little bit, come up with your own pattern if you want to, or you can just go very simple with how it comes, right? A couple other things you're going to need is a good pair of scissors, whether you want to use these that we have around the shop here, or even the little clippers that you use for, you know, your guide wraps. Also got a burnishing tool just to have it. So, you know, because typically when we do these dragon scale wraps, you're going to be doing a large area, right?
Sure.
You know, whether it be in your split grip area, you know, down where your reel and handle is, or even above your foregrip. It's typically going to be a little bit longer section. You're not going to be doing little, you know, 1 or 2 inch sections of dragon scale.
For sure.
You certainly can.
Oh, absolutely.
But to get the full effect and a really good pattern, these are typically going to be 5, 6, 7 inches long.
Nice.
Of course, that can vary, but there's an example of one in green that that you did earlier on, and you guys can see hopefully the effect we're kind of going with.
Yeah, and that one is done with thread. It's just more of a wide cross wrap type pattern, and then to give you kind of a contrast, this is actually using the mesh tape. It's just a tighter. Well, weave is not the right term, but it's just a tighter pattern. The gaps between the squares, if you will, are just tighter. So that right there is something that will give you, you know, a difference between a more open pattern that you can change when you use thread or monofilament or fishing braid, or if you want one that's very consistent, you can use the mesh tape if, you know, either you want to do it quickly or if you don't maybe feel confident to do it freehand yet. Those are options, and it does give a cool effect, for sure.
And, you know, essentially after you've, you know, decided on your placement of the dragon scale, you've kind of determined your pattern, last but not least, you can just go over it with thread. And that could be any thread of your choosing. That can be, you know, metallic is a preferred option just because it really pops on your rod blanket, and I think it shows the pattern a little bit better.
It does, you know, because it has a little reflective, you know, to it being metallic, and then that's what, it helps cast a shadow, and it shows it better. I think it shows it better.
Yeah. So metallic would probably be preferred, whether you want to go with the standard ProWrap metallic. ProFX would be a great option. It's a little bit easier to wrap these long sections with ProFX.
Sure.
And then, you know, after that, apply your finish to it. Simple as that. And there's even a couple steps that we'll probably show at the end of the show. You know, you can do a floating decal, super cool over these, you know, because you got a lot of room to work with. You could easily put your spec decal, you know, if it's visibly shows up, you know, depending on what colors you use. Floating decals are another cool option, though.
Always.
Yep.
Always. I think that's a big hit with like most people. You know, because it gives, just put a couple layers of finish, gets that decal up off there.
Yep.
So, absolutely.
That's it.
All right. Cool. You want to give something away before we get into this bad boy here?
Could. Certainly could. What do you think?
We're going to do a ProWrap 18 spool thread assortment kit and fiberglass mesh tape. That's a 300-foot roll. That's what you got there.
Yep.
So just no telling how many
Thousands.
dragon scales
Maybe thousands.
that you could do. You could do some serious dragon scale with 300-foot mesh tape. You know, that's going to help you get started. So you'll have your ProWrap, which that spool comes with what? Either nylon or color fast, and then your metallics.
Correct.
So there's kind of an assortment kit in there. That's really all you're going to need for that. You know, when you do the pattern underneath, using the mesh tape, or if you're going to use thread, you don't really have to pick and choose. You know, you can use any thread you want, or you can use fishing line, or, you know, that. So, all right, so our winner for that is Brian Haggerty. Brian, coming out of Facebook, congratulations, bud. That's going to get you a ProWrap spool thread assortment kit and the mesh tape to get you started, if you haven't already started on the dragon scale stuff yourself. So, why don't we go ahead and we'll get into this demo, because the great thing about this is you don't have to do a ton of planning.
No.
You know,
you just need to know the general area where it's going.
And you can do this. It's a fairly, I guess you would say, like, it's low-lying, it's fairly unobstructive. So you could easily do this before you slide grips down.
For sure.
Now, granted, maybe cork you might have to be careful with, because, you know, if you start putting layers of finish before you get the cork over. But if I'm doing wind grips or EVA or something like that, and I'm going to do a dragon scale wrap, I am 100% laying the mesh tape down, and I am going to put one thin coat of finish over it before I put the grips on. Then I'm going to put the grips on. Then, if you want to use winding checks or not, that's a personal preference. And then I'm going to come back and do, you know, layers of finish, add decals or not, whatever, and then build it up from there. And then it will provide a very seamless type look, because then you'll be able to make that dragon scale disappear up under the grip, or a winding check, or whatever you want to use there. And it'll look, you know, it'll give that just very seamless look.
Very true. No, I agree with you on that point. It gives you a better seam, that, you know, that better transition that you typically, if your grips are already in place, and even winding checks, you just don't get that transition like you do if you do it ahead of time.
Absolutely.
But certainly you can't do it on all builds, But like you said, EVA, wind grips. Just be sure don't apply too much finish. You want to do a very thin coat just to wet the thread, and so it'll kind of set that thread and you know, where it won't move at all. And you should be good.
Yeah, and you know that there was a question on the questions page there asking about thread color preserver. So do you need to use color preserver to block the mesh tape from passing through a light color thread? Bruce, I use metallic 99% of the time, if not more than that, to be honest with you. So metallic is not going to really show through, or the mesh tape is not going to show through the metallic.
Right.
You know, a metallic doesn't necessarily need a color preserver in that term. If it was very, very light color thread, you know, you might need to do it, but what I would do is I would do a little test run first. Yeah. I just putting the mesh tape is white, so it's not like it's, you know, a very hot color or anything like that. I don't think you're going to see much of an issue that color preserver would even fix, honestly. So I mean, do you have
I think the only thing I'd be concerned with is maybe a very light shade of regular nylon.
Right.
Because it can turn translucent almost,
Yeah.
like not translucent is not the correct word, but it can show through a little bit of the color from underneath. That would be the only case where I'd be worried.
I think translucent is right, though.
Yeah.
I think you get
But
it.
even in that case, I really wouldn't be worried about that mesh tape showing through too much. It's a really, really thin material.
Yeah.
And it typically lays flat anyway, you know? So it's going to give you the design, but not necessarily that white color showing through.
Yeah, it's going to be more that you're going to see the pattern and not really the color.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Like you said, just test it beforehand. You know, if you want to put just a little test wrap down and you know, put some finish over top of it, just to see if
you use like white silk, I mean, you're gonna you might as well just put finish over the mesh tape and and leave it, because I wouldn't do that. But yeah, so
good question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So let's talk about laying this thing out.
Yeah.
What you got for me?
All right, so first of all, we're going to obviously start with our roll of mesh tape. And
I see how you folded the corner over.
Well,
because that gets lost.
You know, when I first picked it up off the workbench over here, the shelf earlier, it was completely flat, and it took me a couple minutes to find the edge. So
you're welcome. I set
you up for that one, didn't you?
Well, because I had to hunt for it, not because it was on you, but I had to hunt for it when I was messing with it last week.
So that's pro tip 1.
Pro tip 1
when you're
tonight.
dealing with mesh tape, be sure to do a little tag in, a little
earmark it or whatever you want to call it.
Fold the earmark over before you press it down, or else that edge is almost impossible to find sometimes.
It really is.
But anyway, so once we have we're going to get our blank set up there.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'm actually just going to peel off a little bit of this. Cut a strip to work with. Now, obviously, if you guys are working with, you know, a much longer section, I would probably not cut this so soon. I would probably just but for demonstration purposes.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you guys will notice is, let me come over here. There is a solid line on my right-hand side, right? And the other side is, we'll say it's open-ended, you know. You can see the little tag ends poking out there, right? And on the top as well, and then on my bottom, which is now the top, it's also closed. So you kind of have to keep this in mind as you're doing the pattern, because you want these, you know, for instance, you want to do it at somewhat a diagonal, right? You don't want to do it this way because you're just going to keep going around the blank and around the blank. So you kind of have to set up this pattern at a diagonal.
And I think we talked about, we were discussing earlier, right, in our pre-show meeting, that depending on the width of the tape is how sharp of an angle you're going to have to approach this at.
Right. Yep.
Because technically, I've seen you do this a number of times where you lay it out and you're cutting strips out of this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, and that's a good point. You know, we can certainly go with this width if you wanted to, Now, you're really going to have to angle this out to make it
Yeah, that's what
follow
you were
through.
saying earlier, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So if you did it like, you know, even at a slight angle with the full width, you know, once you start wrapping this around, it's going to immediately catch on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to keep that in mind. Now, you can certainly use this full width if you wanted to, right? Or we can go in. I'm just going to start with a new piece here.
And I think too, there's going to be some difference based on if you're dealing with a diameter of blank like this, or you're going to be dealing with a blank diameter. What happened to the pro tip?
Well, I thought I was going to use that piece, and then,
Right.
you know.
I fouled you. So what I was saying was, you know, if you've got a blank that is a thinner diameter like this, compared to this blank here, you are going to have a little bit of a different pattern because you can choose different widths of the mesh tape. I would venture to say, you know, you have a little bit more flexibility when you have a little bit larger diameter blank, because when you have a thinner diameter blank, it still works just as it would. See, there's pro tip 2.
Just cut it.
Cut you a new tag in. You only got, what, 300 yards of it? Is that what it was?
It's no big deal.
Yeah.
There we go.
Perfect.
I'm sure it'll run out here in a second as soon as I say
Yeah, it's
that.
out right there. Perfect. So yeah, you have the ability to adjust the pattern, as Hunter was saying, with the width of the mesh tape.
So,
Sweet.
I'll do a little bit longer piece here. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this one.
Okay.
I'm going to do it in half.
All right. Let me roll that one over for you. Cool. And like you said, there are solid end. You can use a solid piece, or how did you say it? Ones with the edges that are solid or edges that are open.
Let's go closed and open. How about that?
There you go, closed and open. And these pieces are not fixed. So you could technically pull one of the pieces out and you'd get a single string. Like if you wanted to use an open piece, or if you wanted to use closed on both sides, you could actually take this one little tiny thread on the outside and grab it and open it up.
Yep. So for this one, when I did cut it this time, I actually have all closed ends,
Okay.
which should make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And I did do a shorter section again, and that's honestly just because of our working room here. But, so let's give this a shot and see if we can make it happen. So as I rotate this around the first time, I'm really just trying to gauge and almost make it match up. I didn't go quite enough angle there. Try a little bit more.
Yeah, because I guess if you really wanted to punish yourself, you could cut that like only 2 squares wide.
Could.
And you have to go around like 100 times.
So obviously the goal is when you wrap this around, you kind of want those edges to match up as close as possible. That's pretty good. Not too bad there.
No doubt.
And the cool thing is once you do run out of a piece, since essentially this entire mesh tape is just one large grid of the same pattern,
Right.
all you have to do is just make another little strip. Of course, I can use this one that I had earlier. One little edge that popped up there.
And that's the good thing, that by using the mesh tape, it'll stick to the blank.
Correct.
And you don't have to worry about it coming up or having to put color preserver on it, things like that. You certainly can. It's not going to hurt the pattern, but if you put a bunch of coats of color preserver on it, you're actually going to be diminishing the way that the pattern will reveal itself, because you're filling in the gaps a little bit. You know, it's not going to be a ton. It's not going to kill the deal, but it will kind of fill it in just a little bit. We'll cut me a piece there too.
Go for it. So this is the quick and easy way to do it. As you can see, that's probably way too long for our purposes. So I can actually come in with my snips. I'm going to finish it off right there. Now certainly when you do this, if you wanted to, you can have these edges so they are, hopefully this is what you're going to show maybe in a second. So these edges are square. As you can see, mine are not square. They kind of almost point at the end, and that's just from doing the diagonal. But if you started with a square piece, you can have square edges on both sides. But that's the quick, easy, knock it out in a minute
Knock it out in a minute.
way that I do it.
Perfect. I like it. I'm trying to cut a piece here that's got a closed in on it.
Not all these matched up exactly perfect. If I took a little more time and carefully laid each piece side by side so that the intersections matched up, it'd be golden.
Well, I can promise you, I don't get it perfect. So
it is kind of hard. I mean, like I said, you're dealing with these very, very small, thin fibers.
Oh yeah.
And they do tend to pop up or fray or come loose, so it's hard to get each one perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, pretty good.
Yeah. Sweet.
Cool.
That'll do it.
Yeah, so that's my version. What you got?
Perfect. I forgot to get this thing involved.
Ah, well, we can get yours.
So let's try to get that thing involved.
Let me pull mine off. You should probably rip off pretty easy.
Yeah. I'm just going to shorten it just so that we've got room for the camera. That's all.
Okay.
And I'm going to show them where it's...
You want to pop that out?
Yeah, I got to pull it.
Slide this in. So we get a nice little close-up camera view.
Yeah.
Is it this way?
Just turn it
this way.
just like that, yeah. And of course, all right. Forgot that we had this guy. Hang on. There we go. It looks pretty in focus, doesn't it, Jay? Okay. I know we kind of like locked it in. So as Hunter was saying, and what I was going to show is the starting and the stopping, because when you start and stop this thing, it's going to give you somewhat of a open space on this end here, okay? So you see there's a wedge here, right? It's not flush. So this is one of the reasons why that I would do it before you put your grips on, because then you can cheat without cutting this completely in. And this is also another reason why we like the CRB Pro PowerWrap, because we can just spin it right around. Now, if you do have grips on it, you can come in and square these edges off. I use a razor blade when I do it. But you don't necessarily have to. For example, what I'm talking about is down here, there's a wedge in there, and right here there's a wedge in there. So I would pick my first intersecting piece, and I would just barely touch the rod blank. And it cuts, this stuff cuts very, very easily. So you don't have to go gouging into the thing and doing all that stuff. So don't worry about that, okay? Now we want to make sure that this is pressed down before we start wrapping. So the good news is from there, all we're going to really have to do is metallic. Because I'm a metallic guy.
So I see we have a question up there actually.
Okay.
Maria.
All right.
What size thread works the best for this design? So what, I think it really matters?
I haven't seen a huge difference, to be honest with you. I just really haven't. This is A. I've used A, D, somebody had C, I think at one time we were just testing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a huge difference. Where you're going to see the difference is if you're going to use thread instead of mesh tape on the approach.
Correct. Okay.
So that for me is going to be more important on giving you a different pattern than the thread here. So now as we go and kind of start and stop this, I always like to start out here off of this thing, off of the mesh, so you can kind of maybe get a running start. It kind of helps you a little bit. It's just however you feel comfortable. You can do it in a hand wrapper, no problem. You don't have to have the RBS Pro. I like doing it in the RBS Pro. It goes a little quicker. You can do it by hand. You can put a track on here, like TC4 or TC2. I'm going to hold with a bobbin because I wrap with a bobbin a lot on the Pro because I can have multiple bobbins and I can just wrap this color, pick up, do another one, pick up, do another one. And we also have our little hover cam here, and it helps if we just kind of show it with a bobbin and then the track, you know. So I'm going to start a wrap just like you would start any other wrap, okay? I'm going to go around a couple times. We're going to pull it tight. I think, did I plug this thing in? I think I did, yeah. So. All right. Let's get it locked down. No. See what I did there? Started off too far.
It's only because we're live.
Yeah, right? Why don't we just do it live? Nothing ever bad goes, you know, nothing ever bad happens. Ugh. Well, and two, when I cut that metallic, it pulled itself off there, so. All right. There we go. Let's see if we can get this going here. All right, so we'll go around a little bit, and then we'll cut it off. Now, you do have to be careful because these little pieces of the mesh tape can come up. So they do a pretty good job of sticking. You can use some color preserver if you want, but like I said, you don't need to put a ton of coats of it, and also you don't want to fill it in too much, honestly. So you can kind of see the pattern start to develop there. Right there. How are we looking, Jay? Good. Of course, starting and stopping, I'm leaving gaps in a little bit, but don't yell at me too much for that, guys. All right. Whew. Made it to the end. The suspense was just killing me. All right. You put a little, tuck it away here. and that'll be that. And I wrapped off of this one to show you why that you need to be sure you cut the edges flush, because it will show big time. And you'll realize, oh sweet, I didn't cut it flush, unless you're going to slide grips over it. So down here, you can see there's, get my probe set out. So here you can see that there is a very defined edge where the dragon scale starts, right? So you got that. You know what? I've got zoom on this thing.
Uh-oh.
Hang on.
Uh-oh.
We're going in, kids.
Whoop. Whoop, whoop,
I got you. Stand by. Golly. Y'all act like this isn't episode 73.
No faith.
Yeah, right? How we doing? All right, so now we're zoomed in. So you see, we'll use the pointy end. So right here, there's a very, very hard edge. This is a little extra. There's your hard edge. Now, if you would not have cut that flush, we're going to slide down here to the other end. And it's going to give you, everything looks okay, and then whoop, you see this big triangle that comes out, and then it fades in, and it comes back out. That's what happens if you don't cut it flush. So just be careful. Either hide that under a grip, or hide it under, you know, an overwrap, something like that. But don't let that go, because that right there looks good, but then you come around and you go, whoop, what happened? You got a big gap here. So that's just a little, you know, something to be aware of, but that's your dragon scale. You can kind of see how it pops through there, you know. Pretty uniform. That's about as, you know, close as you can get. You could probably clean. There's a little bit more of a square, open square there because of the space between the mesh, but that's pretty solid. Not too bad. So that's that.
Easy enough.
It's easy enough.
That's the hard part, right there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the best part about it is, if you want to do it as a guide under wrap, you want to do it, really, just put it anywhere. And that's the best part.
You can. You can even use that. I've seen guys do just this as, we'll call it their base wrap for even an under wrap. Or not an under wrap, like a butt wrap or a cross wrap.
Yes.
You know, you can do a simple, you know, diamond or chevron over the top of this and let this be like your base or your background of that wrap.
Right.
And get some contrast, and looks really cool.
I love it. Really start tripping.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, but that's a great point. I love it. Good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea. Cool. Let's see. Well, I think that's Cody's kind of question there.
Yeah, that exactly.
Is that where you were going with that?
I was.
Nice. Can you do a tiger wrap with the dragon scale? I don't know.
It's a tough one. You definitely can do it. Will that dragon scale show through the tiger wrap? I've never done it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's going to be one, Cody, you're going to have to do and then get back with us there, because I think it would take away from it.
Yeah.
At some point. Because there's so many layers to it, you might drown out that. But I don't know. Maybe you'll have to do that. We'll have to do it over the top of that one. I guess use it as a base, he's saying?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, depending on how much of that shows through your tiger wrap that's the question. I like
where your head's at, though. Always thinking. Carrie's got a question. Does this work on larger diameter rods? Does everything line up like you have there? It does. This is a larger diameter blank here. Whoa, hang on. I'm going to back this out just a hair. So that is a larger diameter blank there. You can see the difference in diameter. And that one also lines up well. It really just depends on how wide of a band you cut and at what angle of attack you do it. But you could do this around, you know, something that's 2 inches in diameter if you really wanted to. It just take you a little bit. But I would just adjust the width of the tape, because like you said, on that little tiny, and I wouldn't say this is all that small, but this smaller size blank outer diameter, if you tried to use the full width of that thing, it just, you just can't do it. It would be so articulated like this, I don't even know, you couldn't even get it to wrap itself.
Yeah, it's
honestly.
more than a pain it's worth. It's easier in these small strips like you've cut here. You know, even that one's probably a little too big. More like that, you know, about half.
Right.
Half of the width of the strip.
I would say, you know, what is it, probably maybe 6 squares wide or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, you could spare a square, really. You know, you don't have to go too wide. So that's good. What type of threads or color combos seem to make the dragon scales pop best? Dave, I'm going with metallics every time.
Yep.
No doubt. And from there, we're going to talk a little bit about how to set this up and not use the mesh tape. And that will give you the option to have a higher relief up off the blank by using either 50-pound braid or a monofilament that just stands taller, because a monofilament's going to be a thicker diameter, it's going to be a little more round, and it's going to hold its shape a little bit better than, you know, when you wrap over some of this rod building thread, it compresses it a little bit, and it doesn't have the diameter or the integrity that like monofilament would. But yeah, so that would be that. You want to give something away? Or do you want to do another question?
Let's do a giveaway.
All right, perfect.
All right, so giveaway number 2 for the night. We have a split grip handle kit. We have another 18 spool thread assortment kit, and a roll of the mesh tape. And that's going to be Dylan McDowell from YouTube.
Sweet.
Dylan McDowell.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Love when the YouTube crowd is in the building.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to do a quick tutorial, whiteboard. I'm going to talk about how you would lay this out, okay? So first, you're going to need to pick an area, right? So we'll just imagine this being your area. It's going to differ between rod builds, because you might have one that's 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, whatever you're trying to lay down. Now, if you're not confined to a very specific space, you might want to make it easy on yourself and do something that is easily cut in half, you know, like 8 inches, 6 inches, things like that. Because if this was 6 inches here, you're going to need the circumference of the blank in the middle. So I'm going to go to the whiteboard, and we're going to talk about this.
Okay.
How about that?
Cool.
All right, cool. And I'll use this as a thing. So, all right. So we've got a rod blank. And I wanted to do this so that then people could like have some notes while they're doing it. All right, cool. No glare? Perfect. So we've got a rod blank here. And we are going to put a dragon scale inside here. Okay? So we're going to call this in here 8 inches. All right? And you're going to put a piece of tape right here at 4 inches. So this is 4 inches, right? We're going to do half. That's going to give you a pretty good measurement on your circumference of your blank. You're going to pick it right here in the middle. Now this is not something that I came up with, so I'm not taking credit for this. This is just something I was taught. I know a few very veteran rod builders have done it this way. Good friend of mine also. She does it this way. She does beautiful wraps. You know, Bree does that.
Yep.
So,
And sorry to cut you off there. This is just if you're going to use thread,
correct.
or monofilament or braid.
Yes.
This is not the cheat, the fast.
No. This is
mesh
the
tape method.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
This is going to be free-handing it with any of those materials that you had
Okay,
listed.
gotcha.
So, you guys have done this before. You have put tape here, and then you cut it, and that's going to give your circumference of that blank.
Right.
Now, you can mic it. You can use your digital calipers and do that. But if you use the tape, it's a little more forgiving because you will have the ability to have the measurement in your hand and not have to kind of go, oh, well, it's, you know.
Back to your calipers and
Right.
all that.
And so you will then, like I said, you'll have it in your hand and you can stick it down onto your tape measure. And you can use the CRB butt wrap alignment tool because you will need that anyway. So you might as well just take the piece of tape and put it right there on your CRB butt wrap alignment tool. That's something that for, you know, your cross wraps, all your butt wraps, it's great. We're going to use that for this because we're going to use it to mark the blank and put graduations on where you're going to do this. So, I'm not a math guy. I think you guys know that. I'm also not a handwriting guy. I think you also know that. So, we've got 4 inches here in the center of an 8-inch span. For just pure luck, we're going to call the circumference of this blank is also going to be 4 inches. And I'm doing this just so that I don't, you know, so we got easy math. So we got a circumference of the blank is 4 inches, all right? Now, you need to decide, do you want to have a 2-axis, 4-axis, 8-axis wrap, okay? If you're only doing like a 2-axis, it's not going to look like a dragon scale. It's just going to look like you're just doing cross wrap and just a couple X's on the rod blank. It's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do an 8-axis, golly, speaking of that handwriting thing, so we have 8 axis, right? We're going to do 8 axis. So what we need to do is we need to take this 4, and we need to do 4 divided by 2. Okay? It's going to be 2. All right? And then we're going to divide that in half again, right?
1.
So we're going to get 1, right?
So far, so good.
Okay. And then we're going to cut that in half, right?
Sure.
I think that's what we're doing.
0.5.
So we got 0.5. Okay? And what you're going to have to do is, let me think, because you can now I'm caught under the heat of the lights. Because we were talking about it earlier where we went, yeah, that's right. Yeah, all right. So 4, and this can be inches, of course, 4 inches in circumference is a pretty big blank.
Right.
So this could be 4 inches, it could be 4 millimeters, it could be whatever. We're just using 4. So don't hold 4 inches over my head or 4 millimeters, whatever. So we've got 0.5. We're now going to take that 0.5 to the rod blank, and that's going to be your graduations. So all of these little guys here down this rod blank are going to be 0.5. Okay? Whether that is centimeters, whether that's millimeters, whether that's inches, it doesn't matter. Could be feet. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's going to be 0.5. Now, you need to take and put these graduations at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. So you'll have, when you do it on the rod blank, that's when you're going to get your butt wrap alignment tool out. And you will lay it in the butt wrap alignment tool, and you'll do a full line all 8 inches of the span, okay? So you'll run 8-inch span, 12 o'clock, turn it to 3 o'clock. So we'll put a note here. Line 12, 3, 6, and 9, okay? So you're going to put your line there. Then on that line is when you're going to put your half-inch, we'll call it,
Okay.
Marks. All right? So now you have all of these half-inch marks all the way across 8 inches. Okay? As you begin your wrap, because you are doing an 8-axis, okay, you need to start at 0 or 12 o'clock, so the one that you're looking at. So now we're going to do, what I'll do is I'll draw, this will be the rod blank again. Hang on. We'll maintain colors here. Okay. So now we're zoomed in, okay? So we're going to, the red is going to be your line down the middle of the rod blank. Hopefully it's straighter than that. And now you have little graduation marks, okay? Let's just imagine that's even enough, okay? So here is 0, and you can put a piece of tape or whatever. So that line is this line. And you will come in with your thread, and you'll start wrapping. Thread will be black. So your thread will come in and cross. Remember, we're at 0, so this is at 12 o'clock. And it's going to go around, and it's going to come back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to come back around and cross here at, I'll just call this 8. All right? So now you're going to be crossing your other axes as you go, but we're counting off of 0. So we're going to go around and we're going to cross at 8. So then when this one comes through, then you'll go here. It's going to go around, and then you got to come back, right? So you're going to come back the other way. And it doesn't matter where these fall and hit, because as you come back another direction, it might be, I don't have enough marks here, but coming back the other direction, it might be here, but this one would be 8 from where you crossed out over here.
Gotcha.
So you work your way back this way, and then as you come back, you can either choose to cut it in half. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So just like you went this way, you would come back here at 4, right? This would be 4 because 4 and 8, they're related like that. So then this one would be out at 12. If that math is right, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you work. And then eventually, you'll fill it in. And as you fill it in, you'll get a tight wrap just like that. Now, you don't have to do an 8-axis. You can do a 4-axis. It's just going to be a larger opening. It would look something a little more like this one because there's just not as many crosses. Okay.
It would kind of elongate the pattern.
Well, it would just, the boxes would be larger.
Right.
So instead of the boxes being, you know, like this in an 8, they would be twice the size, pretty much. So they would be like this in an 8, or a 4. So if this was an 8, this would be a 4.
Okay.
And if you wanted to do a 4, instead of crossing at 8, you would have crossed at 4.
Gotcha.
And you also, if you were doing a 4-axis, you wouldn't have divided in half so many times.
Got it.
So there is also, you could also cheat in that a little bit. If you wanted it to be an 8, but you didn't want to divide down that many times, You could do it in a 4 and then just keep wrapping and cut things in half. But then you, depending on how the marks are, and you can start to get like a cross-eyed look and things like that. So hopefully I didn't lose anybody too much on that. We're going to do a show, we talked about it today, where we lay it out, but that's kind of the shorthand version of it. And yeah, so that's something without doing a calculator and in doing that. Starting off with a piece of tape, cutting it there, getting your circumference, laying it down. You can certainly do this with math, but it also, if you get a number, like if this was not 4 and it was like 3.892 or something, you can round that. I wouldn't, I would go to 4. If I had like 3.5, I probably wouldn't go to 4. I would probably just own it at 3.5.
Like you mentioned at the very beginning, if you do a very easy 8 inches, as opposed to, and if that overall length was 7.65 inches, you start with that even round 8 inches, and it kind of makes the rest of the math a little bit easier.
Yeah, that this overall length is not too bad. That doesn't really affect your graduation. If this number here, if your circumference number is a really weird number,
okay, gotcha.
If it was like 2.813 or something like that, what's half of 2.813?
Right.
So then you're going to have to do that in half of that is then like, 1.4 something, and then you got to do what's half of 1.4 something, and then these little numbers here start to get super weird because, on your, even if you're using, metric, trying to do like 2.1 centimeters and 2.25 or something like that, it's going to get very difficult.
Gotcha.
If you were doing an odd length here where your graduations weren't going to hit, like 0.5 is going to hit well starting at 8 or starting at 0 and ending at 8. If not, just end it out here. If this was like 7.27 or something because you have a grip, that's gonna if your grip's gonna slide on and you're doing this before the grips come on, I would just then go ahead and continue them out here and just work those in, and then just cover them up with the grip.
Cover them up, yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, well, that's just for helping you keep everything spaced out. That kind of helps people. So hopefully, I didn't muddy up the waters with this, but I wanted to show and talk about that there is another way out there to do it. And I would use, monofilament. I don't know if, size D thread is pretty good. If you wanted something that had more relief off the blank, you could use a 50-pound braid. You could use monofilament, things like that. You just have to test it because we were talking with Brooke earlier. He mentioned this and said, if what you're using is too thick in diameter, the whatever thread you're using, whether it's a thread, a monofilament, a braid, if it has too much diameter to it, the crosses will have such relief off the rod blank that size A is going to jump off of the crosses.
Right.
It's not going to cover them nicely. And even size D, depending on what you're using. If there's not enough of a little flat ridge on it, or there's too much relief, you're going to start getting little open peaks right at the cross. So what I'm saying is if this was a cross and it was really, really thick monofilament, and you're coming in here with this, black thread, right here at the peak, you might get one of these. And that's, of course, a very exaggerated example. But because this spot right here is very, very tall off the rod blank, you have to be careful. You might not be able to get that coverage.
Right.
So, and then of course, then that's going to peek through, and that's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
all right. Hope I didn't booger that up, but we'll see. If I did, I can bet I'll hear about it. So, all right. Leo Edward Jr., could you do this? Could you do this in the space between a split grip that's already installed, then cover the ends with size A, or would that stick up too high? Phil, right there in that first door, there is the one that we used. I put it in the split grip there. I think it's a neon green rod blank. Should be leaning up right there. Do you see it? So this is an example of a grip that was already put on. And, the good and the bad with this is you might have it happen where, I'm going to show this here. Your ends down here are going to be wider. Okay, so these trim bands, if you're not careful and cut a really, really good edge down here, you might have to widen your trim band. So it takes away from it just a little bit, I think. This is another one of the pro tip what not to do. And it's not wrong and it's not terrible. It's just I would like to see there be a little less trim band to show a little bit more of the pattern.
Very true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it was just something that I extended this out considerably farther than I would. On a built rod already, you might not have a chance to adjust it. But that mesh tape is very flexible. You can run it all the way down and even run it up onto the grip and then give it a razor cut and then, put it down there so you don't have to have this really wide trim band. So, Leo, hopefully that answers your question there. But you also said split grip that's already installed, then cover the ends with size A to cover the inner. Would that stick up too high? No, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yep. That's exactly what you did there. But
yeah, and Bobby had the same question.
Yep.
What if I already have grips on the rod blank? Yeah, I was not saying, when I was saying to do this before you put your grips on, I was not saying that that's the only way to do it or that you have to do it that way. It just, in my opinion, can give you a little bit cleaner look because you don't have to have such wide terminating ends there, and you can kind of make it so that it looks like it just disappears up under the grips.
Yeah.
And that's whether it's a rail seat, whether it's a grip or anything.
In my opinion, anytime that you can get away with putting, aside from maybe a decal, something very, very simple, anytime that you can get by with putting your decorative wrap, if you plan on putting the split grip, before you put the grips on, you're ahead of the game.
I think so.
Because not only, say we wait till after the grips are on to put our decorative wrap on, you're for one dealing with, it's the same amount of space, but it feels a little more confined. You're working with 2 grips on each side, so you don't have as much room to work with. It's just easier to do it ahead of time before you put the grips on, if you're able to.
Yeah.
And just, those seamless lines, it just looks really sharp.
I agree. I think it's just a better option. Yep. So, and then from there, I don't put color preserver over the top of that. Really, none of the metallics per se have one of those deals where it's not going to force you into putting color preserver on it. I just go ahead and start putting finish on it. I always do multiple coats and thin coats because technically you're trapping a bunch of little tiny air bubbles under there. So what you don't want is if you put on a big glob of finish and go, oh no, I'm just gonna go ahead and build it all up in one. No. I wouldn't do that. No. because you'd be surprised how much air gets out in all those little tiny gaps. So I would do, the either Threadmaster Light, or I would use, regular Pro Coat. It's more of a medium build, and I would put a very thin coat on, and I'd probably, use a little bit of heat. That helps kind of get everything in there and run all the bubbles out before you start adding, because even if you only use the mesh tape and stuff, and it's not an extraordinarily long process, I just hate to see decorative wraps ruined by bubbles.
Very true.
So,
yep. Ricky, in that silver dragon scale, could you have inserted 1 or 2 strands of lime green?
This guy here?
Yeah, certainly could.
Do you mean like side by side? Because if so, you could absolutely run...
Like an inlay almost?
Yeah, that's how I look at it. So if you've got something like the TC2 or the TC4, where you can run multiple threads off the carriage at the same time, just like we do in a tiger wrap. Mm-hmm. A tiger wrap, you're using 3, so there's no reason why you couldn't do 2 silvers and a green, a silver and a green. On TC4 you could do 3 silvers and a green, 3 greens and a silver, whatever, but you could lay different colors together as you run it out. You could absolutely do that. That's a pretty cool idea. I'd like to see how it turns out.
Yeah.
If it put sort of a spiral wrap in it. I would try to put maybe 2 or 3 of the same colors together and then the single band, because it might space it a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you put 2 colors there together so close and you do a lot of it, it might blend it too much, or it might make it look weird. But
yeah, I agree. You almost want to treat it as like an accent color, as opposed to just 2 colors side by side.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think at least 2 of your main color, even 3 probably would be best.
Yeah.
And then an accent color.
I could see that running out of the TC4. That would be cool. Yeah. 3 of the same and 1 kind of an accent, something just that makes it pop. Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do that when we demonstrate the advanced.
Yeah, 2.0.
Yeah, right. Dragon Scale 2.0. So, cool.
All right. Any other tips on how to finish your wrap? You said obviously multiple thin coats.
Yep.
Even if you guys are using high build, I would probably still do at least 2-3 coats of high build.
Yeah.
Because not only, even if you're aside from using a floating decal, the more coats of epoxy, especially thin coats of epoxy, the more depth you're going to add to that dragon scale, and it's really going to help it pop. If you go in and just do 1 coat of high build or a couple coats of your light build, it's not going to have that same effect.
No, you're not, and I'll show you too. This might, let me see if this will translate under the camera.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Because so the red only has 1 coat, all right? Put this down, hang on. So I don't know if you can see it, but it's ridgy. That's a word. That's a rod building term, technically. So let me get a little zoom in here. Good? Perfect. So you can kind of see on this side here, all this way on the edge, you can kind of see that there's ridges in it still. You can see the way the light's hitting it over here, because it's only got 1 coat on it. So that's how I would start, but you can see here, there's your bubble, okay? Let's see if I can get this around on the edge. You can't quite pick it up. Maybe there. But so there's your bubble, and that is a pain because you could probably pick this out because you only have one coat on there, but it sucks. Let's be honest. You know, you get that bubble and that's just it's gonna ruin your whole day, honestly. So that's what not to do. You know, we always try to show a what not to do, but you could probably pick this out and then run it on a sander, or actually, I mean, you would just sand it right here. So that would be something that you could turn down, get that bubble, and then you would go back and put finish on that. So that wouldn't be too bad at all. Now, the alternative, or the second step of this is not where you put your decal because there is not enough finish here. So coming out of this, I'm going to switch this around here. Okay. So now we have, this is smooth. So you can see here, kind of you're getting the reflection, you know, all here. You can see how smooth that is. This is now with 2 coats. No, I think this is 3. This is 3 thin coats. So this is perfectly smooth. I did not have to sand this one because I went and put 3 very, very thin coats on here. This is ready for a decal. So you can see, did fairly good with the alignment there, but having it nice and smooth is what's really going to pay off for you in the decal. So this is either ready to go. You could always continue to put finish over it, but that's the difference. So showing it with 1 coat, showing it with 3 coats. This one is now ready for a decal or just to be done. So that's going to give you kind of a difference in what it looks like, so that you know what you're looking at when it's ready. Yeah. Especially for a decal, because it's got to be perfectly flat. Yeah. So.
And even looking at this, you know, I'm sure you could nitpick this and find little spots where those that mesh tape, you know, the fibers didn't align perfectly.
Right.
But, you know, honestly, there's so much going on and so much reflective, you know, visual.
Yeah.
You can barely tell if anything is off in that pattern. For sure. So don't be too hard on you guys. You know, if you're trying to get every little fiber matched up, it's not worth it. It's the end product is going to come out looking awesome. Yeah. Especially when it hits the sunlight. I mean, those colors just go crazy. So.
Yeah, and this doesn't even do it justice. I mean, we're just here under studio lighting. Yep. So take it out in the Florida sun. It is really something. Yep. That is for sure. So cool. All right.
All right, well, let's do this.
Doing a little giveaway.
Last giveaway of the night.
Okay.
Grand prize.
Sweet.
We're going to do an MHX multi-option rod kit.
Perfect.
Along with the 18 spool thread assortment kit and the roll of mesh tape. Lucky winner, Alan Cran. Alan Cran, C-R-A-N. Congratulations, Alan. Got a rod kit, a spool assortment kit, and some mesh tape to get started.
Sweet. That's awesome.
Great prize.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, so we had Brian Haggerty winning tonight. Congratulations. We also had Dylan McDowell coming out of YouTube, and you just gave it away. Alan Cran for the big winner tonight. So, episode 73. We appreciate everybody joining. I know it wasn't as long of a show as we typically have, but we wanted to try to get y'all started in something that maybe you haven't tackled before. Something that is a fun, decorative item that really anybody can do. This is not something that is, you know, reserved for only the best rod builders. Yep. It's something that beginners and advanced builders, men and women, anybody, you know, something that's easy, something that doesn't take a ton of tools, doesn't take a ton of time, isn't all that expensive, you know, to produce some cool patterns like this. And of course, you know, you can leave spaces in it. You can do all kinds of things. Yeah. If you've got a scrap rod blank, if you've got, you know, scrap pieces of whatever, play with it a little bit. You know, we had a couple great questions on, can you do this? Can you do that? with some of this decorative rod building stuff, you know, there's not a whole lot that you can't do.
Yeah.
So.
And even as easy and basic as it is, we still talked about, you know, if you want to add it under a cross wrap, diamond wrap, you can add it under as an under wrap, you know, if you wanted to. Yeah. You can take a very simple and basic technique, and even as an advanced rod builder, you can apply it, you know, and use it as almost like a secondary or a base wrap under something else.
So many areas. So many areas. It's a very versatile decorative piece, as you said. So, awesome. Now, remember, before we get out of here, hashtag Build to Win is going on with the photo contest. It ends June 28th. That is on the Rod Builders Workshop on Facebook. And, you know, if you're not on Facebook, we understand. That's why we also come to you live on YouTube. But, you know, sometimes it pays a little bit. So if you got to use your wife's or your husband's or your kid's Facebook, maybe jump on there and enter to win. You know, you'll win some gift cards here to Mudhole to buy some more cool stuff. So that's it. And all the products tonight that we used on the show are there at mudhole.com/MHL. Stands for Mudhole Live. I know.
Very creative.
Almost snuck by me there. Yeah, mudhole.com/MHL. That way you can go through and, you know, pick the mesh tape and do that so you're not hunting too long on the website. But, you know, if you go down the rod building rabbit hole, throw a few more things in the cart there. We got blanks in, I saw.
We do. We had a lot of blanks come in.
Yeah.
So those will be shipping out this week for you lucky guys and girls that have these on back order or looking to purchase them.
That was awesome.
Big shipment of blanks just come in, so those will be going out soon. We got more inventory arriving every single day.
Yeah, I was looking at the schedule that you were telling me about. It's impressive.
Yep.
Tons and tons and tons. As always, for those that watch the show, but they want to do a little bit of reading, maybe some step-by-step, we've got a blog. I don't think the blog gets enough press.
No, it does not.
So, you know, for those that you have seen Guffy, we call him Guff Blogman, he's got a link to do 3 simple ways to add dragon scale wraps. That is just blog.mudhole.com. That is going to be an absolute wealth of knowledge, not only for the dragon scale wraps, but just all kinds of stuff. There's great photos, there's great how-tos, it's all kinds of stuff like that. You know, the 3 simple ways to add the dragon scale, also 4 great ways to refine your rod builds. Don't forget, if you've got a rod that somebody gave you that's a factory-built rod that's ugly, that you don't like, it's got some gaudy decals on it, throw a dragon scale over it.
Yeah.
Put a floating decal.
Yep.
Maybe like I Love Mary or something. Whatever. We'll do a custom decal for you.
Don't have to take that old decal off. Just cover it up.
Wrap
Easy
right
enough.
over it. Perfect. All right. So that's it for episode 73. Congratulations to the winners. What else you got? Anything?
I think that's it.
I know we were a little early on this one. We're just 2 weeks, but we will be back
Next show?
on the 20th, 22nd. We're now June 22nd, I think, is a
22nd,
Tuesday.
sounds right.
Yeah. So, because we're going on a striper trip, we're going up to the Hava, going to catch some stripers. So we're going to do that, and it'll be June 22nd, 6:30 Eastern from the Penthouse, as always. So, anything else?
I think we got a couple topics in mind, but as always, if you
Throw it
guys
in
have
there.
any suggestions,
No doubt.
throw it in the Rod Builders Workshop group, and you know, might pick it up one time. And of course, if not, there are 15,000 people in there that are happy to answer your question if you have one.
That's the best part about the whole community, for sure. Camaraderie and the help, absolutely. So, all right. Well, we had the Birdman in here. Birdman stayed, right? Yeah. We had Guff and Taylor in the war room. Of course, Steve was in there helping out, I'm sure. We had Phil and Jay on the 1s and 2s, and of course, my left-hand man, Hunter McCamey. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Chris Adams from the Penthouse for Mudhole Live. We'll see y'all in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, for episode 74.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.